Hi, today we are going to be learning about biology, more specifically, animal and plant cells, taxonomy, dichotomous keys, and plant structures. Let's start small. Cells. Every living thing is made of cells. They are the basic unit of life. And although they are small, they are very complex. Inside every cell are tiny structures called organelles. As the name suggests, they are like mini organs, each with their own function. The first organelle we will discuss is the cell membrane. The cell membrane surrounds the cell, protects it from the environment and invaders, and regulates what goes in and out. Within the cell is a liquid called the cytoplasm, which allows things like other organelles to move around. The nucleus, arguably the most important organelle, contains the genetic information, the DNA, of the cell. The nucleus is also what differentiates prokaryotic cells from eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells have a nucleus, while prokaryotic cells do not. Prokaryotic cells are more simple cells, such as certain species of bacteria. Attached to the nucleus is the endoplasmic reticulum, which creates proteins and fats. The next organelle we will talk about is the mitochondria. The mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell. It performs cellular respiration, the process that takes sugars and makes energy to be used in the cell. The Golgi apparatus is like the post office of the cell. It packages fats and proteins into organelles called vesicles, which transport them around. These organelles are in plant cells and animal cells. Although they are very similar, they have a few differences that separate them from each other. Lysosomes are only in animal cells and eat unwanted materials to digest them. Plant cells contain the cell wall, which surrounds the cell membrane for extra support, a central vacuole, which stores water, and chloroplasts, which make sugar from the light in the process of photosynthesis. Plants, such as lettuce, kale, and basil, that is grown in the real-life aquaponics model, have structures and functions very different from animals like us. Their cells have different organelles, as we covered earlier, and they look entirely different from us. When you think of plants, you think of their structures, roots, stems, and leaves. What should these structures do, and how does how they are built affect their function? Let's start at the bottom, the roots. Roots are covered by a layer called the epidermis, which means outer layer of skin. Also on the outside of the roots are root hairs, which collect water and nutrients from the soil and bring it into the root. The inside of the roots are mainly composed of two things, xylem and phloem. Xylem is a tissue that carries water up the stem so it gets to all parts of the plant. Phloem is a different tissue that carries nutrients dissolved in water throughout the plant. It carries nutrients such as nitrogen, calcium, sulfur, phosphorus, and potassium. The main functions of roots are water and nutrient uptake, as well as holding the plant in place. Next are stems. Stems support the plant and hold the leaves up to the light. They also allow for water and nutrients to travel up the plant. Leaves are the last major structure that we will discuss. Leaves have a protective layer called the cuticle. Below the cuticle is a layer called the palisade layer, which contains chloroplasts. Within the chloroplasts are molecules called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a green pigment that absorbs light to create energy. Veins containing xylem and phloem run throughout the leaf to transport water and nutrients. On the bottom of the leaf, there are openings called stomata. Stomata open and close to allow the exchange of gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide. When they are open, carbon dioxide rushes in and oxygen goes out. To better organize and understand organisms, scientists created taxonomy, the branch of science concerned with the classification of living things. Living things are separated by 8 major sections, starting with the largest, most broad, going down to the most specific. These sections include domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Domain is the largest group and has 3 subsections within it. Archaea, which includes types of bacteria that typically live in harsh environments, Eubacteria, which is the bacteria you think of, the bacteria that gets you sick, the bacteria that lives on you, etc., and Eukarya, which includes eukaryotic organisms, organisms which have cells with nuclei. Each domain has kingdoms within it. For example, the domain Eukarya has 4 segments or kingdoms: Plantae, commonly known as plants; fungi, fungus like mushrooms; Animalia, animals like dogs, turtles, fish, or humans; and protists, which are kind of the other section. They include all other eukaryotic organisms that don't fit in the other kingdoms of Eukarya. Using our real-life aquaponics model, the fish are called tilapia. There are dozens of kinds of tilapia, so when talking about this specific type of tilapia in a scientific way, experts use a fancy language called binomial nomenclature to specify the type of fish they are talking about. Binomial nomenclature uses the last 2 sections of taxonomy talked above, the genus and the species, to give names to each species. The scientific name for the white Nile tilapia is Oreochromis Niloticus. There is a special way to write names in binomial nomenclature. The first letter of the first name, the genus, is capitalized, like you would capitalize your name. The second name, the species, is not capitalized. The whole name is written in italics if typed, or written in cursive, or underlined if handwritten. So back to the fish. Oreochromis is the genus of the white Nile tilapia, and it tells us that the fish live in Africa and is a type of tilapia, traits shared with other Oreochromis fish. The word Niloticus is added to make the full scientific name of the white Nile tilapia. Every species has a different scientific name, so you won't get them mixed up. Using scientific names can also tell you what animals are related to each other. By looking at the scientific name, Oreochromis esculentus, you know that this species of fish, called the Singida tilapia, is related to the white Nile tilapia because they are from the same genus. The classification of a white Nile tilapia is as follows: domain Eukarya, kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, class Teleostae, order Perciformes, family Cichlidae, genus Oreochromis, and species Oreochromis Niloticus. This tells scientists lots about the organism based on each section it is classified in. So let's use an example you are very familiar with, the human, to break it down into more detail about what each section can tell you. We are in the domain Eukarya because our cells have nuclei. Next, we are classified in the kingdom Animalia because we are eukaryotic, like all the other organisms in the same domain as us, multicellular, can move, eat, and digest. We are in the phylum Chordata because we have a spinal cord. So up until now, we are related to the white Nile tilapia. But now we differ because we are in the class Mammalia, meaning we are mammals. We have hair and produce milk to feed our young. We are a part of the order Primate. We have more thumb movement, better vision, and larger brains than other mammals. We are in the family Hominidae. Members of Hominidae, for example, chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans, show increased empathy. The genus Homo shows ability to make and use tools. Lastly, our species is Homo sapiens, which is specific to us, humans. Dichotomous keys are used to allow people to identify organisms based on the traits the organisms may or may not have. The keys have a series of questions with 2 possible answers and display pictures of the organisms that you are trying to find the name of. The answers narrow down the pool of species and eventually lead to a specific species or group of species. The best way to understand dichotomous keys is to do them yourself. Complete the dichotomous keys on pages 7 and 8 of your workbook.